when I was doing computer sciences, and even before that, when I was doing computer engineering, it had nothing to do with coding, but I played with Linux a lot, and that's where I kind of got the concept of debugging systems for the sake of making them run smoother. So if you don't debug a system, and then the program won't run, so it means everything that you've created is basically just going to be a bunch of code. It won't run, right? So taking that concept, like my mind usually does, and sort of spins it. There's been allegations of trying to bottleneck municipalities with the affirmative repositioning that's going to happen on the 27th of March on Friday. The 27th of February on Friday. It's a March, so I got that confused. Anyway, so most of the local authorities are welcoming this challenge, right? They're seeing it for what it is, a challenge. They are being challenged. Their system is being challenged. They are welcoming this challenge as it comes in. All of the flaws in their system will be exposed, obviously. And I'll throw some stuff out there. For example, the letters are submitted by people. People fill in the application letters and they submit them. But why do they have to be read? Why do they have to be read by human beings? Right? There is another sort of bug in the system. It's not automated. How can people be put on a list for 4 years be explained away? It can't. So what if such an event were to happen, and now it is happening? So obviously a lot of errors in the system will obviously come to the surface, and in that there can be innovation, right? We have a lot of young IT technicians who don't have jobs, who can take up these call them tenders and try to automate the system. That's just something I'm throwing out there. And it's not something that will take forever, right? I'm just saying that people need to take advantage of problems. Problems are what bring out innovation. No innovation came from success. Innovation is the success. So when you're looking for a problem, right? When you're looking for a problem in your system, when you're debugging, you want it to run, you want it to execute, right? So I guess that kind of thinking isn't exactly the kind of thinking that analog people would have, and I'm talking analog people who computers are new, and gadgets for the youth, and technology is the future, and it will technologize itself. that kind of thinking that isn't really up to date. And Namibia is one of the fortunate countries on this continent and on this planet that's up to date. But if we're up to date but we don't know what we have, there isn't really a point, then so what? Right, so what? So what? You have ABC, but you don't know how to use it. And that's all I can say about that whole trying to destabilize municipalities accusation on behalf of the affirmative repositioning group, of course. So the other thing I wanted to do was delve into history. I think Namibian history, there isn't a lot of justice when it comes to Namibian history. It's very linear and very dry. The picture doesn't really jump at you when you sort of think about Namibian history, and this in turn has sort of created this rift between the youth and the generation that lived through the so-called history, through the so-called times that we call history today, right? Because it's history to us while it was their lives yesterday. So when they recall it, right, they're recalling memories. When we recall it, we're recalling what we are told, what we read, and so forth. So it's completely different, and the presentation is different. If it was a picture, there would be two very different pictures alongside each other. And this is mostly due to corrective history, and this is the history of hiding secrets. But where you have open secrets and obvious secrets, and secrets that don't have to be secrets because of the times. And this is one of the negatives when it comes to the older people that lived through history, that want justice and reparation for their suffering. What we have to understand is African suffering is not due to Africans. Whether an African inflicted pain on another African or not, at some point in history, African pain as we know it today in our history is not due to Africans. Because our history, the history of the unknown, where we had our wars and our conflicts, we're probably talking about 30 men on each side fighting. That's war. That was war. Right? Population size was not as great as most imagine it. You would have 200 people, and that's a clan or a tribe. They grew on to the small thousands at some point, but they were still small groups. And this was obviously due to infant mortality rates, and there wasn't medication during that time. People were exposed to the environment. There were lions, there were hyenas, there were all sorts of natural disasters were surrounding people. So we shouldn't exaggerate the size of the population, because as we exaggerate the size of the population, we also exaggerate the size and impact of the loss. Right? The reason why Namibian history was able to pick up every time was because of this, because people could easily connect. Right? Where people were divided eventually was when it came to credit. Who wants to be the hero? And to do this, they looked at the American democratic system. This is why I always talk about America. America had founding fathers who created their constitution, and the founding fathers today are edged in history. They are larger than life. So Namibia was sort of trying to run after that, but they were running way too fast. And as they were trying to run after that, the fact that these histories were completely different, I guess, wasn't taken into account. Because what does a founding father mean to Namibians, right? And what does development by said figures mean to Namibians in an already developed world, right? So you get talk of nation building and so forth, and it doesn't really define itself. It says nation building, but it doesn't really say what they are trying, where they are trying to take the nation building. Do we just want everybody to hold hands, or is there an actual goal? And this is where activists come in, right? Please understand, everyone that keeps saying troublemakers, everyone that keeps saying all of that stuff, this is where activists come in. Activists unite people, right? Hate it or love it, activists unite people. They give people common purpose. So instead of villainizing the activist, right, we should try to accommodate them. We should try to engage the activist intellectually, because this isn't being done. And that's basically where it's so boring, that when it comes to the intellectual battleground, you have these really, really old ideas. It's like bows and arrows going up against fighter jets, and there isn't any innovation. Ideas are not grown. Ideas are not adapted. Ideas are not changed accordingly, and old ideas are not revisited and redrafted and changed accordingly. So what do we have? We have a bunch of confused people that don't know what certain groups are trying to accomplish, because the group that knows what they want to accomplish, the outsider can only know what the group wants to accomplish if they acknowledge them and actually listen. But if they feel like if they listen, they are submitting to the group, right? So there is a lot more going on. There is a lot more going on, a lot more being exposed, and it's all for the sake of true nation building. Because if you want to build a nation, then you have to sacrifice a certain something, and that is the worship of leadership, political leadership, worshipping at the altar of political parties. Then you have to find your strength in being a citizen, and then you have to find your strength in the state, the government, the courts, the legislatives, but not political movements, because political movements don't grow people's consciousness. Think back in South Africa, the greats, Steve Biko, they were activists. Mandela, he was an activist. Most great impactful leaders started as activists and ended up leaders, by proxy, I guess, because you cannot, this is the mistake that I see in Western African countries, where you have governments overthrowing other governments, schools, and all of that kind of stuff, all of that violence. That happens due to political movements taking on the duties of activists, right? Because they amass political power, and political power intoxicates. Political power derails. It derails the entire movement. It derails the purpose. And political movements seek only power, right? That's why they attack only power. And when they attack, unlike the activists, they don't confront. The activist confronts, gets feedback, walks through that feedback, and go back to the drawing board until there is success. And on that success, political movements can build what they want, or political movements can actually start by supporting activist movements, supporting, not controlling, supporting them, or more like acknowledging them, right? Acknowledging them, and as they acknowledge them, they accept the challenge, right? So an activist is willing to go above and beyond, right? An activist embodies the outcome that they want, right? So that's why you get a lot of radical activists. Most activists have been radical. Most activists had to sacrifice a lot, right? So petty threats like prison and ABC won't really deter an activist, because that does not stop, right, or solve that problem that they intend to solve, right? It only sort of like derails it, but then it will get back on track. So that's why you hear terms like by any means necessary, or even if ABC has to happen, let it happen. We want to achieve our goal. It's not a threat. If anything, it is showing passion right? The passion that they have for the movement, right? So those are the two things. I didn't note them down, but tomorrow, before the flood, definitely something that I have to, tomorrow.